Today's story is one of betrayal, a family torn apart by a crime so unimaginable that it would leave an entire town in shock, and a nation asking how something so terrible could happen. It's a tragic tale of love turned deadly, of fantasy and obsession. This is the story of Jasmine Richardson and the murders that would forever be known as the Richardson family murders. Your discretion is advised. Medicine Hat, Alberta, a quiet, tight-knit town where neighbors wave at each other and kids ride their bikes down tree-lined streets. Among the town's residents was the Richardson family, a family of four living in a modest, cozy home. Mark and Deborah Richardson had built a stable life for their children, Jasmine, 12, and Jacob, 8. Mark was a hard-working father, known by everyone for his friendly nature and love for his family. Deborah, his wife, was a devoted mother, warm and attentive. Their lives were typical, maybe even idyllic. But as the saying goes, nothing is ever as perfect as it seems. Jasmine Richardson was the apple of her parents' eye. She was a bright, happy child, involved in school activities and surrounded by friends. But as she approached her teenage years, Jasmine began to drift into a darker phase, one that her parents didn't see coming. She pulled away from her family, her interests turned toward goth culture, and she began spending more and more time on social media, connecting with strangers who shared her newfound interests. Her family noticed, but chalked it up to the typical teenage rebellion, never guessing where this path would lead. Then, Jasmine met Jeremy Steinke. Jeremy was a 23-year-old man living on society's edges, a high school dropout, fascinated by goth culture, heavy metal, and the dark allure of vampirism. He wore dark clothes, kept to himself, and believed he was a 300-year-old werewolf, something he spoke about openly. He even wore a vial of his own blood around his neck as a sign of his dark identity. To most people, Jeremy was strange, even unhinged. But to Jasmine, he was everything she thought she wanted, a taste of the forbidden, an escape from her ordinary life. Despite their age difference, Jasmine and Jeremy quickly became inseparable. They shared hours-long conversations online, whispering about dark fantasies and a future free from anyone who tried to hold them back. The idea of their star-crossed love consumed them. To Jasmine, Jeremy became a sort of dark hero, someone who understood her better than her parents ever could. And for Jeremy, Jasmine was a young, impressionable girl willing to follow him into the depths of his twisted reality. Jasmine's parents grew increasingly alarmed as their daughter's behavior spiraled. Her school grades dropped, she became secretive, and her appearance drastically changed. Gone was their bubbly, happy daughter, replaced by a brooding teenager who dressed all in black, adorned with dark makeup and symbols. Mark and Deborah tried everything they could think of. They grounded her, cut her internet access, and tried to steer her back to the loving home she once knew. But the more they tried to separate Jasmine from Jeremy, the stronger the couple's connection became. Jasmine's resentment toward her parents festered, turning into anger, then hatred. To Jeremy and Jasmine, her parents were now the enemy, standing between them and their love. Online, in messages they shared dark thoughts, and their fantasy of running away together began to twist into something even darker. Soon, they were talking about murder. Over the weeks leading up to the fateful night, Jasmine and Jeremy crafted their plan in chilling detail. Jasmine's online messages revealed the depth of her willingness to act on their fantasy. At one point, she wrote, "I have this plan. It begins with me killing them and ends with me living with you." They settled on April 22, 2006, a night that would end in tragedy. The evening began like any other for the Richardson family. Mark and Deborah likely had no idea that their home, their sanctuary, would become a scene of unimaginable horror. Around midnight, Jeremy arrived, armed with a knife and a twisted sense of purpose. Jeremy entered the Richardson home, finding Deborah in the basement. She screamed as he attacked, but her cries were cut short as Jeremy overpowered her. Hearing the commotion, Mark rushed down to protect his wife, only to be met by Jeremy's blade. A struggle ensued, and Mark fought with everything he had, but he was no match for the young man who had invaded his home. Within moments, both parents were dead. While this horror unfolded, 8-year-old Jacob was hiding upstairs, terrified by the sounds echoing through the house. Richardson stabbed her 8-year-old brother as he lay in bed before Steinke cut his throat. After the murders, they left the home and fled into the night, leaving behind a scene of devastation. Jasmine's transformation was complete. She had become part of a crime so brutal, it seemed impossible for a 12-year-old to have been involved. The next morning, an innocent neighbor boy came to the Richardson home, hoping to play with Jacob. When no one responded to his knocks, he circled the building to peer through one of the basement windows. What he saw sent him running back home in terror. The bloody bodies of Mark and Deborah sprawled on the basement floor. The young boy rushed to tell his mother about the horrific sight, prompting her to call the police without questioning her traumatized child. The police arrived shortly after and looked through the same window as the 6-year-old. Believing there might still be someone alive inside, they called for backup. Unfortunately, their hopes were in vain. Mark and Deborah were already dead, and upstairs, they discovered Jacob lifeless in his bed. Investigators immediately realized this was not a random act. This was a planned, calculated massacre. Then they noticed something else. Jasmine, the family's 12-year-old daughter, was missing. At first, police feared she had been kidnapped, that she too was a victim. But as they searched her room, they found clues suggesting otherwise, drawings and messages that hinted at her hatred toward her parents and her obsession with Jeremy. The truth was dawning on them, and it was more horrific than they could have imagined. Just 24 hours after the murders, police tracked Jasmine and Jeremy to a town nearly 80 miles away. The couple had fled, convinced they could escape justice and start a new life. But there was no escape. They were found hiding in Jeremy's truck, their faces blank, as if unaware of the gravity of what they'd done. Once in custody, the full extent of Jasmine and Jeremy's twisted relationship came to light. Friends and family members recalled warning signs, the gothic online posts, the messages filled with dark promises and plans. Jasmine's own classmates testified about her disturbing behavior and strange obsession with death. And then there were the messages detailing the crime, filled with words of hate and love intertwined in a deadly, sickening fantasy. At trial, the details of the crime were laid bare. Jasmine was charged as a minor, and after extensive psychological evaluations, she was found guilty of 3 counts of first-degree murder. Due to her age, the maximum sentence was 10 years, the harshest penalty possible for a juvenile in Canada. Jeremy, tried as an adult, received a life sentence with the possibility of parole after 25 years. The verdicts did little to bring peace to the devastated community. Many struggled to comprehend how a 12-year-old could willingly participate in such a brutal crime. Jasmine eventually served her time and was released, but her story remains a chilling reminder of what can happen when dark fantasies cross the line into reality. The Richardson family murders are remembered as one of Canada's most shocking crimes, a story of young obsession, twisted love, and a descent into darkness. Jasmine Richardson and Jeremy Steinke's relationship stands as a warning about the dangers of manipulation, fantasy, and unchecked obsession. It compels us to reflect on the vulnerabilities of youth and the importance of family connections, open communication, and mental health awareness. How can we prevent such tragedies in the future? What signs can we look for in our own lives and the lives of those we care about? These questions linger long after the headlines fade away. The aftermath of the Richardson family murders rippled through Medicine Hat and beyond. The community was left to grapple with the horror that had unfolded in their midst. Neighbors who once felt safe now looked over their shoulders, and parents hugged their children a little tighter. Vigilante movements sprung up, demanding stricter laws against juvenile offenders, while debates raged on about how to balance punishment with rehabilitation. Local schools organized meetings to discuss mental health, bullying, and the influence of online relationships. The Richardson case became a catalyst for conversations about the responsibilities of adults in recognizing the signs of distress in children. Authorities realized the need for better resources and support systems to help families struggling with similar issues before they spiraled into violence. Even today, the Richardson case serves as a haunting reminder of the complexities surrounding juvenile crime. It has sparked debates among psychologists, legal experts, and parents about the capacity of young minds to comprehend the weight of their actions. Can we, as a society, do more to guide young people away from dark paths? Can we better identify the influences that lead to such drastic and tragic decisions? Jasmine's release after serving her sentence sparked outrage among many who felt that her actions were unforgivable. Critics argued that some crimes should not be excused by age, while others pointed to her rehabilitation as proof that change is possible. This dichotomy reveals a deeper struggle within society, the balance between punishment and the potential for redemption. Psychologically, Jasmine's case raises questions about the nature of influence and vulnerability. Experts have studied her relationship with Jeremy and how it twisted her perception of reality. Was she a victim, ensnared by a charismatic older man who preyed on her insecurities? Or was she complicit, willingly choosing to embrace a dark fantasy over her family? In interviews and studies following the case, psychologists have noted how crucial it is to understand the factors that lead young people to make such devastating choices. The duality of Jasmine's experience, being both victim and perpetrator, challenges our understanding of morality and culpability. It forces us to confront uncomfortable truths about youth culture, the impact of online relationships, and the sometimes sinister influence of romantic fantasies gone awry. As we close this chapter on the Richardson family murders, we are left with haunting questions that linger in the air. How can a young girl, once innocent and filled with dreams, become entangled in a web of darkness? What drives individuals to commit acts so far removed from human compassion? And ultimately, how can we, as a society, ensure that the tragedies of the past do not repeat themselves? Thank you for joining us on this somber journey through a tragic tale. If you found this story compelling, please like, share, and subscribe for more. Remember, every story is a reminder of the fragility of life and the importance of connection and understanding.